fade in if you'd like, I guess. Um, let me start the live video.
Fading in.
Fade in if you'd like, I guess.
Oh, oh,
Wait, wait. So we have no audio, but we have fade in, correct?
oh, hold on. Audio's gonna
Oh,
kick
now
in.
we just have
Audio's
Sam
gonna kick
walking.
in a minute. I just
You
heard
just lost
audio
me.
on my side, so we're good.
Now you just threw something else. Well, I don't know that this is actually starting on Facebook because it looks like it's just sitting here. The live video. Oh, there we go. It looks like we are live on Facebook, and now I just need to figure out how to turn the camera around. There we go. Live on Facebook. So now I need to come over to Discord and see what I can see on Discord. And it looks like, well, it looks like it's just you and I in here right now.
Yep, that is
And
does seem to be that way.
all right, and do we have any video?
Oh, here comes somebody who's Sarah's
Sarah.
back. I
All
can
right.
turn my video on. Hold on, so that hello people, we know we're here.
Oh, there you. Okay, cool. Yeah. Now let's do this. I will.
We're gonna
turn on my.
We're gonna probably explain that we're not gonna be doing a lot of video tonight, just so that we can make sure that the stream quality stays a little bit consistent, right?
Start recording or casting with Discord. Discord will have to access. Okay, cancel. I'm just trying to figure out like. Swipe up. Great. Okay. Oh, so we lost Sierra again. And
but
there we go. All right. Now this looks like it's saying I can use.
Let's do a little shift here.
I see you.
Oh,
there we
go.
There
he is. Yay!
All right. All right. So we actually have something that looks like video. Excellent. Excellent. And yeah, this is, I'm with you. Like, I kind of like the idea of making it mostly voice.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, what I see with some of the videos like this that are kind of formatted this way, sometimes we get distracted by the other people, and because I can't bring somebody to the center of the, to like bring them full screen, like I can make you full screen, but then you see all the things showing up on the video and it looks funky, and I can make you the talker. And you'll see that pop up on the live stream here in a minute that you're the talker. But in my mind, there's got to be a better way that we can do this. And I think we kind of identified that solution maybe, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. Well, tonight we won't worry so much about that, but I'm going to go ahead and turn off my video. Boy, that just makes my life a lot easier because I can just put the phone in my pocket now, hopefully, for a second. And I guess we'll just have to kind of go with that. So I don't have the format in front of me right now, but our format's been this idea that we were going to kind of start with our news items of the day, and I think that we probably have a couple of things that we could talk about on the news item.
Hey, Chuck, hold on. Yeah, I lost audio. Bear with me for a second. Oh my gosh, unbelievable. I had to switch to my headphones, and when I did so, it seems that my device properties also changed, and I apologize. So I am working on it. We'll get us back here momentarily. Please bear with me. There's my audio. I lost my desktop audio, which is what controls from that device. So bear with me for 1 minute. let me go put. I'm going to put my video on so the people can see I'm here, and I'll just kind of talk through. We are having audio difficulties pulling the audio in from this, and actually, I'm going to go ahead and switch off of here. Sorry about this, Chuck. What a bummer! I can't believe that happened. All I wanted to do was go to my my headset so that I knew I was getting some feedback. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to that one. All right, now can you talk for me, Chuck?
Your talk.
Okay, I got you back. All right, hold on a minute. So now what I need to do, make one more quick change, and why don't you go ahead? I'm going to fade back in, and go ahead and you continue talking, and I'm going to fix the other side of this.
Okay. Don't know what the other side is that you're talking about. But so you're saying basically at this point then we're back to where we were, just trying to get started and just kind of start over?
Yeah, if you don't mind. You started talking about the FBI thing, and I didn't want people to miss that because it is a very important discussion that we need to have.
Yeah, I mean, so like we said, normally we've been starting shows for the first 15, 20 minutes or whatever these are, these little socials, kind of talking about what's been going on in the world, in the news, kind of like Bitcoin in the news or block. That, which of course we got to bring the Nefarians into that. And from the Bitcoin wallet, there's kind of something very interesting that, like, how did they recover this? If you're supposed to be so anonymous, how was it that the FBI sort of got this wallet thing? And I guess I would want to tell people, like, don't worry, Bitcoin didn't break, but just know that people, the technology is also out there to help analyze what's going on a blockchain, and it's useful for law enforcement. That's a good thing. So yeah, I mean, there's those kinds of things, and then we could talk to, I don't know, a couple other things that we can talk about. So I don't know if you're ready. I'll get you, let you kind of lead it off because you make the comment that there's some good things that we need to talk about around that. So why don't you talk around that?
All right. Well, I have not been able to resolve the other issue that I'm having, and so I have to keep muting and unmuting my mic. So bear with me on that. So the first, yeah, how is it that they were able to get to the private key of the ransomware? So the ransomware, which I don't know which ransomware. There's a couple of things that have been going on in the ransomware world, and it seems like some of the targets, like I know that over in Ireland right now, they had a ransomware that took down their entire healthcare system, and I don't know that I would have heard that other than through other channels. I was like, wow, I never knew that was going on. And
what was that?
It was through one of the blockchains. And
no. You said the country.
Yeah, I think it was Ireland, I believe. Maybe it was Dublin. I can't remember specifically. I heard it and through very quick, and I could probably find the source again because it was in a video. But so they are using this to attack people, and now they're starting to crack down on that. There's ways that they can get around some of that stuff, but what I heard was that the FBI was able to get the private key.
Your audio is really not very good.
Oh, really?
Or well, at least I'm having a hard time hearing you.
All right, hold on. Let me. Is that better?
Not really.
All right, maybe I switched. Hold on. Let me let me go back over here to this fun thing. Discord. Oh yeah, why man, it got changed completely. Is that better?
Much better.
All right.
All right. So why don't we start back at when I called you 10 years ago and said, "Hey, I've got this idea." Okay. Let's not go back that far. All right. So let me just kind of recap what I think I heard from you. It was
11 years ago.
Yeah, there was another incident, another ransomware that I think you said might have been in Ireland or Scotland, whatever, somewhere else, and they actually attacked like a health kind of network.
Yes.
And then you started getting into, and hey, they are finding ways of, dealing with all of this.
Right. Well, and that was through that I don't think was actually specifically a blockchain specific attack. That was just a standard ransomware attack, as far as I know. But now when you start talking about something like this, they have to get to a certain private key to release the funds or release the software. That becomes a problem. And then, these are things that we should be keeping private. How did an agency of any type get to that private key?
I just want to kind of, for clarity, I'm not aware of any blockchains that have been attacked. These ransomwares, from my understanding, are really attacking old infrastructure technology, cloud, and just internal networks and whatnot. I don't think I've not heard of a single ransomware that's actually occurred on a blockchain. I understand that a lot of the demand for payment is to Bitcoin.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. It's more what I mean. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And then the other thing that I hear you saying also is like, okay, so how did they get to the private key and get the funds moved?
Correct. And that comes from any.
How that happened?
I have no idea. Well, so the only way that I can think, based on how things are supposed to work is, you have locking and unlocking scripts. Either there was a gap at a point in a chain and they were able to, dig, because you can actually navigate through code back to the initial blocks. So they had to navigate back to a certain point where they found a loophole. And so how do you protect against that? And they talk about security and stuff like that on blockchain, but there is a big question, like in my mind, is how would that happen? And how did the hole happen? Or was it a hole? And what are the key possibilities? I'll reach out to Greg real quick and see if he can join us, because I would love to know what his thoughts are on this.
Yeah. See if he can join us. I'll share some thoughts after you. Are you going to text him?
Yep, I'm going to text him right now.
By the way, are you watching Discord just to know if anybody else is joining us or anybody's on?
Yeah, I can see. I've got it in my other window, but I don't see anybody on yet. So.
Okay. Yeah. Whatever. So while you're reaching out to Greg, one of the things that my understanding of what I've read so far, it's not necessarily that the FBI got the money back from the wallet. It's that they were able to identify the wallet.
Well, they were able to identify the wallet, but I thought that I heard that they got like 80% or 90% of the funds back or something.
Right, but that does not mean, right? I've not read, and I could be wrong, right? It's just I've not read that actually means that they got the funds back through the blockchain or through the wallet. It could be, and this is the whole idea, not sure, what is it? Not your key, not your coin. That idea. It could be that these people are maybe running through shared wallets somewhere, like on some of these exchanges. Let's say that maybe they're on Binance or something like that. And when the FBI, that's where I was under where I wrote about the dusting thing, as you mentioned, I would say okay, so they threw out all this dusting, and what it did is they knew sort of, they were looking for they knew the identities that got paid, right? That's easy enough. But then where's the
Right.
wallet? Well, then they're able to consolidate, or basically through analysis of what's called path analysis, they're able to identify, X, Y, and Z, or these 5, these 10, these 20 identities are going to this wallet. Now let's say that wallet is being held in Binance. It is possible they just served a warrant to Binance, and Binance paid it out. Now I'm not saying, I want to be clear, I'm not with Binance. I'm just saying that maybe it was in a shared wallet, and whoever's primary wallet it was served by, let's say it was in Coinbase. Now, do I think that these ransomware people would be as dumb to do that? No, but, maybe. I mean, they're dumb enough to where they have, I don't want to say they're dumb. But, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know how it happened.
Right.
It's interesting, and, it's definitely worth kind of pursuing an understanding on the whole thing. And I think it's very important that we understand that, hey, law enforcement is not without tools to make sure that laws are still filed, right? So, and that's okay. In fact, that's why we're not trying to create systems that break laws. We're trying to create systems that allow people to remain anonymous, in a cooperative world, if you will.
Right. And I think that there's a lot of chains that die off quickly, and the reason why they die off is people quickly pick up that they're something fishy or something not quite right, or there's questions about it or something along those lines, and those are the chains that become dead chains. So eventually it is a system that's kind of built to eventually, and they set up the whole thing for the dusting attacks. They set it up so that when dust is just brushed off, you mentioned that earlier, for those that are listening that don't know what dust is, we probably should explain it, right? So dust is we're dealing with microtransactions for the most part anyways. And Chuck, you want to explain that for just a second?
The microtransaction?
Yeah.
So I guess the easiest way I always talk about a microtransaction is just imagine that you wanted to spend 1/1000th of a dollar. Well, you can't. You can spend 1/100th of a dollar as a penny, but you can't do a 1/1000th. We don't have a currency to allow you to pay a tenth of a penny, if you will. So a microtransaction is a tenth of a penny. And what happens anytime that there's a microtransaction against a larger number, these microtransactions, as opposed to going to the hundredth or the thousandth position, may be going out to the 10,000th position, but it all matters what you reconcile as. So, if one is being reconciled at a penny and the other one's being reconciled at 1/10 of a penny, there's effectively 9/10 of a penny, which is dust, right? In that transaction. Now, the penny example, you're not able to do it per se. It does exist. The idea of dust does exist in today's financial world, as it does in any other transaction. So that's sort of what dust is.
Right. So, and then when dust comes up, it has to be dealt with, because dust can actually can become part of other transactions and then work its way through the system. And there were people that started using that for ill intent, we'll call it. And inside of that, they needed a way to be able to get rid of that. And what they did recently is they included in the ability to basically either there's one of two things you can do with it. You can either more or less donate it or give it back into the system, and that goes into the miners, into a pot for miners, and then there are deals made around dust and stuff like that. But but the other way is to actually consolidate it into actually values that is a little bit more of a larger value that could be used better for different transactions. And in doing so, these there are two special types of transactions. And when you do dust, it doesn't cost you anything. Like when you're actually just sending dust off, and that's all you're doing, they don't charge you anything for that. And when you're doing a consolidation transaction, I think that you have to have like there's certain rules and things that go in place. But what ultimately ends up happening is when that dust is consolidated into this other larger value, the trace is gone. So they can't use it for ill intent anymore. So they're coming up with different ways to kind of help to address that. But you know, you have to be aware of it and know it to be able to develop for it. So
the dust is sort of handled through the UTX zero. Is it UTX 0 or UTXO?
No. It's through UTXO transactions. Basically, it really is a more low level thing. It's op return. So it's probably next to the there's one that's probably slightly easier than an op dust, the dust one. So it's not very big of a transaction, and it's very, very simple to build. So it doesn't even go into smart contracts or anything like that. It's much lower level than that.
That's the UTXO side of. So not every blockchain has a UTXO aspect to it. From my understanding, I don't necessarily know which ones do.
Correct.
And I don't know how they solve it, but I think what we're talking about here sort of generally would fall under that category. And at this point, I'm wailing over my head. But so
and I got way too technical in there, so I was trying to draw it back as much as I could.
So then the other thing that was in the news and we started talking about a little bit is that El Salvador has made Bitcoin their legal tender. And it's really an interesting thing because, when a nation makes something a legal tender, it now means that all of their merchants must accept it. Okay, but that's not going to happen because you can't really transact in Bitcoin very well right now at all of these places. They're not prepared for it. So I understand that they're going to create some sort of a pool. I don't quite know what that is or what that means specifically. But there's an interesting component that's going on to all of this. And I'm just going to tell the backstory as I generally understand the backstory, and the world can correct me where I'm wrong. But effectively, El Salvador is dying. Their economy is dying. They rely on the U.S. dollar. And right now, the U.S. dollar is inflating so much that, a lot of these countries that rely on us are really starting to hurt. And you've got this guy who became president about a year ago, whenever it was, down in El Salvador. Really charismatic type person. The world loves him down there. He's an advertising executive, knows how to dominate on social media, and is all about tech. And, he's got a 90% approval rating by his people, and he's coming in. He's going to renovate the world. He's going to make all of this great, and here is Bitcoin. And by the way, don't pay any attention to the fact that I fired a bunch of judges illegally and went against all these laws of my country. And don't pay any attention that we did this other thing over here because we're making this work well.
Of course.
Okay, whatever. We get it. We live in a lawless world right now. So now we have to understand what's really going on here. And I don't really know what's going on here. I know that El Salvador is looking to get a loan from the IMF at one point in time to kind of help bridge some budget gaps that they were going to have. And I don't think that went through, and there were some articles that came on that were online that were like, hey, look, El Salvador did not approach China about getting a loan. I mean, because I think it's very important that you write articles about things that did not happen. Right? I think that's one of the most important things to do is to go, hey, if something doesn't happen, we need to make sure we write about it. Okay.
Right.
And this is just a Nefarian coming out, right? This is just a Nefarian who's saying they did not approach China. And by El Salvador making the move to Bitcoin, it actually makes, and I'm not quite sure I understand the engineering of this aspect, but it actually makes it a little bit more challenging right now for the United States in some of our policies, our economic policies, because they did this. And by the way, Russia this week announced that they're detaching 10% or 20% of their wealth fund, no more dollar assets in it. So we're beginning to see a detachment from the U.S. dollar. We're beginning to see this really charismatic guy who's down in, very areas that are good with tyrants, good with, just hard leaders, if you will, and fine if that's what you want for your country, that's what you can have for your country. And the country where people are fleeing from to come to the United States and causing our current border crisis. It's kind of interesting when you start to put all of these things up in the air and say, hey, this is all happening right now. And by the way, the United States came out and said, I can't remember who it was. Was it Kamala? I don't think it was Kamala. It might have been some higher ranking official was like, we need to start looking at creating a central bank cryptocurrency for the United States.
Oh, brother.
Of course we do. Of course we do.
Yeah, of course. It was funny because today I was watching, was it in the interview that I sent you where Dr. Craig Wright actually said, is like, yeah, you could use Bitcoin to create a global currency, but that's not the intent of it.
The conversation that he had, and where he said, like, so, the guy, he was asked, would you say that there are currently 2 Bitcoins? And I said, I thought when that question was asked, he was more or less referencing Bitcoin, the original Bitcoin with its Satoshis, and BSV with its Satoshis. In watching that one, I'm thinking that maybe he views all of what's going on. So, Cardano, he would call Bitcoin. Ethereum, he'd call Bitcoin. That the entirety of the system itself, he might call Bitcoin. But I'm not sure. That's where I was like, I'm not sure I'm quite reading that right.
Yeah, I don't know.
How did you hear that?
That is kind of, I understand, and this is again where I'm excited. Greg is going to be coming on and joining us, by the way. So, and I'm hoping to solve my other problem here in a minute, so that I can actually get the audio normal, and then. Sean did say that he would join us next week. So some of these conversations are probably going to be ongoing for the next couple of weeks. And I would love to get even, like Greg coming on will be good to have his perspective, but having somebody's perspective like Sean, who's the one of the founders of Smart Ledgers, I think he's a CEO, and he's working in a lot of this stuff every single day. So it really would be interesting to hear what their thoughts are about that. Like, are there 2 Bitcoins or is there one?
Yeah. And by the way, Huff Solo, John, he just messaged that he's not only able to join tonight, but he asked if we're going to be going to weekly. And I think we are going to weekly, right?
Yeah, we're going weekly. That was Sean saying next week too. So, for me, that would actually be a great conversation to have John on and Sean.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So we can pick that up. All right. So we don't necessarily have our time for a break, and we're going to go and do our little ad thing here. I think we really need to work on getting that kind of going on a regular basis. I think we had some fun with it, and I don't exactly know what that looks like.
Well, next week would be a good time to do that, Chuck. And the reason why is because maybe right now would be a good time for you to kind of introduce the what we're premiering next week.
What are we premiering next week?
Well, aren't we premiering the countdown?
I don't know. I gotta say, I have to apologize. You guys hear me chewing. I got these heirloom tomatoes today. And so good. Anyway, I don't know. So as far as the countdown, I don't know. We got to kind of think through that, and that's part of our unscripted planning session tonight, which is, when do we really want to plant the flag, right? And I think maybe why don't we do this too? You want to get the flag ready, and we'll do another preview of what the flag is.
We do not have permission quite yet. To what? Just to show the picture?
To play our thing.
Oh, we can't play the music yet. Not till next Tuesday.
Oh, okay. All right, so we can't do that. All right, so we won't play that.
So we can play that next Thursday.
We can play it next Thursday. All right, so next Thursday, we could at least, all right, so we could, next Thursday, we could kind of, here's the official world premiere of Udicci's forthcoming NFT. I don't know, do you think like we could actually get it on the chain by next week?
Well, we could look to do that. I mean, we are without a doubt close enough.
Well, I mean, and this is okay. So now let's kind of go through these questions. Do we want to literally wait and do it through the system, or do we want to just like manually write a contract and put it on chain? I mean, so my guess is like we could probably very easily manually write the contract.
Well, we won't need to write a contract just to do that as a just to do the.
I'm sorry, right?
Right.
Say that better.
All we need is just the transaction with like a multi-sig transaction, and we could get Mike's involvement at that point too. That might not be a bad thing to do it. If you want to plant that on Cardano with like John and them, and then do it through our system. We could try to do it through our system as well. The only thing I'm thinking is, one of the things that I think we still haven't had the conversation yet is when do we want to launch our coins and how many coins and stuff. And I think that if we're planting a flag, it would be kind of neat to have some sort of, contract around that, right?
Actually, you're right. We would actually want to kind of put a bag of coins in our flag. Yeah, we would. All right, so we sort of create our coins. I mean, I guess realistically, not wanting to put any stress or pressure on anything, maybe we shouldn't, we don't have to necessarily say we're going to launch next week, but we could begin a countdown to launch. So, 14 days, 21 days,
and next week we'll know. Next week we'll know how long until we want to launch, because some of the things that I do have. Hey, I see Greg coming in.
One second, guys.
We're video-less right at the moment, Greg. Just so you know.
Trying to get my Bluetooth going. Hold on.
Oh, there you go.
There we are. Let's see. How do I see you guys now?
Well, we are not in videos currently. So
okay.
I'll go live so you can see. Not that anybody wants to see my face, but I'm here.
Nice. What's going on, dude? I guess there
he is.
Ta-da. I was driving into.
Go ahead.
I was driving into town, and I was like, "Well, shit. Let me stop at the Arboretum. This is right near the college. They got this beautiful lake you can come and walk around." So I figured I'd take a break.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah. How's your day going?
We're very good. All right. I'm good. Chuck probably might answer different. I don't know.
Chuck's on here too. What's going on, Chuck?
Not much. Just making some dinner and appreciating that you decided to take your break with us.
Nice. I appreciate you guys inviting me.
So, I mean, we were actually just talking about... well, really, I guess what we're saying is our launch and our countdown. And before that, we were talking through some of the stuff that was going on in the world recently with Bitcoin. And as we were going through that, Tim mentioned that he's like, "Oh, I'd love to hear Greg's thoughts on this." So let me ask you, if you don't mind, so this whole thing that came up with the Colonial Pipeline ransomware paid via Bitcoin, FBI gets release of funds. We kind of talked through how maybe that could have happened, but have you explored this at all, or do you have any thoughts on that matter?
In which aspects, as far as as far as the hack itself, or as far as beyond that?
No. The actual the FBI getting the reclaiming the funds that were sent as a ransomware. What we're trying to figure out is like, okay, were they able to actually get a private key somehow and actually take the money out of a private wallet, or maybe was this more like these people were hosting? Or we're using a shared wallet, like a Binance. We just like maybe these guys were. It's hard to believe that they were that smart that they would actually use a shared wallet, and then maybe the FBI did some sort of like dusting analysis to figure out where the wallet was, and then maybe they just served a warrant, and the whoever held the primary wallet just paid it out. So they're like, okay, I could see that process, but I haven't really heard clarity around it. And Tim thought maybe they actually were able to find the private key, and we're like, well, that's a problem. So yeah, we were just kind of thinking like if you had any, because you tend to kind of come at this from the legal end, so I thought maybe you would get a little attention to it, or maybe not, and that's okay.
Yeah, great questions. No, it's great questions. I'll be honest, I don't know all the details of. I wish I knew more details as far as what the FBI was claiming, how they did what they did. Certainly in the speech of a lot of the BSV and Craig Wright camp that like looks at it no different than any other property rights or any other legal interaction with property rights, then you could say if it was a situation where they were dealing with no different than saying, okay, well, we're going to hand a bag of ransom money. Excuse my taking my nose. If they're going to hand over a bag of ransom money to a group of robbers or a group of thieves, and then they say, okay, well, then, and that from that point forward, those serial numbers are no good, right? So what's the point of handing over money if you can't use it? Same thing with if you could take recourse, like they're saying in the BSV community, by just simply issuing out a court order to minors to actually confiscate Bitcoin. But I'm guessing that that's definitely not what happened. I can't imagine we would have heard something much greater had they actually had recourse against minors. Right, we would have been hearing that in the public, I'm sure.
We kind of thought, this is a very interesting conversation from the technology side of it, the security side of it, the property rights side of it, and certainly it's good that the law enforcement has some tools to help recover these things, exactly as you're talking about. So we were kind of like, that's an interesting conversation to maybe dig a little bit deeper with, but not even sure where to go down some of those paths. Particularly because I think the FBI is only going to release what they want to release.
You're right. Well, that's the kind of scary thing, as you were saying, that is, okay, where do we see the limits of that, right? What is the point of, and that's what some people would say, what is the point of public-private key pairs and encryption if it has a way of breaking it, right? So that's one thing. And then, of course, if you have a situation like you guys were saying where it's in a custodial wallet somehow in Binance or in a Coinbase, well, then that seems like an obvious no-brainer. They're going to go with whatever the police tell them to do. But that's two different things, right? If the FBI is saying essentially, oh, no, we have the way of doing this. We could break it. We could break any of these keys, steal them, back Bitcoin or whatever, and we're not going to tell you how. Well, that puts a little bit of a different flavor in the community, right? That's like believing you have a technology that's secure, and somebody saying, "Nah, it's not." Exactly. But I'm not gonna tell you how.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a little bit.
It's funny because not so funny, but my wife and I recently were driving back from New York, so we had a long time on the road, and we're listening to some audiobooks, and we turned on Snowden's permanent record.
Mm-hmm.
And he says very clearly in there, look, I want to let you know the government has a file on everything every citizen in America has ever done, and probably beyond America, but every citizen has ever done on the internet. And that got me thinking. I'm like, well, that's interesting. So would there be a way, it's like, how about even when we're first establishing the connection to the blockchain, or like when we're first establishing a wallet, like, we're setting up our seed phrases. Are they able to somehow capture those seed phrases? I mean, are we going to actually have to, for real true security, set these things up offline somehow and then batch them online? I don't know. That's just like I always said, the nefarious side of things. But, I don't deny what Snowden is saying there. I don't, that wouldn't surprise me at all that the government has it.
I'll speak to two things on that. Not saying, I'll speak to the aspects of experience, aspects of claims I've heard made, and then what else? But then, okay, first thing, experience. My friend taught me how to create an offline cold wallet a while back, and I did that at one time. And then, of course, from that point forward, I was accessing it, checking on that address online all the time by, putting it into a Explorer. So, they could see what I was exploring, but they couldn't see the creation of it or see the private keys, right? So there are ways certainly to create wallets while you're not connected to the internet, so on and so forth, and then store that on a USB key. Now, as far as the who sees what and all these things, I'll speak to an interesting conference that if you guys haven't watched, or you should at least look at for humor or fact. Netanyahu, if you want to watch something interesting, pull up the Benjamin Netanyahu cyber conference from I don't know, a couple of years ago, maybe 2018 or 19. And what he says is, Israel is 1% of 1% of the world's population. He says, but we have 20% of the funding of all cyber. Right, and then they go and they fine-tooth comb through the military and they find their best programmers and blah blah, and then the government funds them with all this startup money to become like the top, all these freaking encryption experts and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's the background. Netanyahu says, excuse me, he says, in the world, politically and internet-wise, he says we are the gateways through which everything runs. He was talking about the Belt and Road Initiative with China and Russia, and maybe I'm oversimplifying or speaking sort of not 100% accurately, but he's basically saying that this new kind of financial and whatnot that's kind of emerging.
Oh, I think we lost you, Greg.
In this new world coach, he said, huh? Are you losing me?
Yeah, we lost you for just a second there. You're back.
All right. Anyway, but then he goes, and as far as the internet goes, he says, everything will run through Israel. He said, and Bitcoin runs through Israel. He's basically said like pretty much everything, but he mentioned Bitcoin. He said, Bitcoin, we are the gateway through how that shit runs.
That's interesting. So that's interesting. And one of the other, the other conversation we had earlier on, before we jumped on, was about El Salvador making Bitcoin a legal tender. So, that's cool, and there's all sorts of things to that. And I've done all of like 5 minutes worth of research, and I'll throw my conspiracy theory into all of this for the fun of it. But, it's interesting that we have El Salvador, who is highly reliant on the American dollar, and basically was coming to IMF trying to get some money, and that didn't seem to be working out so well for him. And then a few months back, there was all these stories online that El Salvador did not reach out to China about getting a loan. And we're joking around. It's like, it's really interesting how often we write articles about things that did not happen. So we'll just go with that it did not happen. But obviously there had to have been something to lead those out there. So at the same time, we're seeing, we know that a lot of the Bitcoin machines, the miners, are what kind of right near that. I always forget the name of the dam, the Shanghai Dam. They're using some of the power that's over there. So we know that there's actual a fair amount of Bitcoin production coming out of China. And then we have Russia this week saying, hey, we're going to be, I can't remember, 10 or 20%, whatever it was. Basically, they were ridding their wealth basket of U.S. dollar assets. So that's gone. And I'm like, this is a piece I wasn't quite following, but based on El Salvador going to the Bitcoin, it creates some sort of situation in the economic policy between El Salvador and the United States right now. So there's definitely some shifting going on. It's interesting because it's in one breath saying, hey, all of this stuff is going to happen. There's no doubt that we're going to these cryptocurrencies. And then I can't remember who it was today or maybe yesterday, but one of the upper officials in the Biden administration, or maybe it was in the Treasury, I don't know, basically came out and said, yeah, we're probably going to have to make our own central bank, digital currency. So there's so much going on right now, right? There's so much going on in this space, and it's really interesting. It's really very interesting.
Extremely interesting. And the further interesting thing is, how many of these talking heads, whether politically or whatnot, are speaking from a research perspective of how they're going to do what they're going to do, or sometimes they do things not actually the most efficiently. Like, for instance, El Salvador. Why the fuck would you get on a Bitcoin network that's clogged, has 1 megabyte block size, and can't scale? That makes no sense. From a psychological perspective, maybe it makes tons of sense because that's what someone told them to do, or maybe they're saying, okay, what we'll use it for is like gold. We'll follow the paradigm of Michael Saylor, right? We'll use it as a reserve currency, or they're going to create some kind of lightning network of some sort. How you can't use it as a currency.
I did read that there was some talk that they were going to create. I thought they called it a pool, but yeah, you're probably right. It's more like a lightning network, some sort of, in between, because they recognize that most of the businesses there would not be able to actually transact in it. But then I'm going to come back to your other question, like, why did they choose this one? Bitcoin as opposed to, BSV. I thought one of the interesting things that I read about, because I know nothing about this president of El Salvador, except for he swept into power. He's got like 90% approval ratings. He's an advertising and marketing guy who's like all hip on social media, and he's loved by all of the people. So it sort of like sounds like you got the young hip guy who actually heard enough to understand, like, hey, here's something that I can sell, and I can do something for our country. And it's like, I can play the United States against Russia and China, and I got this thing going for me, and I know how to play the social media game. So I don't know how much of that is anything. I just think it's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it might be just the entry point, right? They might say, well, we started off with that language, and now we've done research, and here's how we're going to approach it. And maybe it could be continued to be Bitcoin, or maybe, like you said, maybe they'll find other solutions with BSV. I know there's been speech of another country taking on BSV as their national currency pipeline, using it for its backbone of its currency. So that if we have several countries that showing that it works, certainly that's a good step in the right direction for BSV. But yeah, BTC has the pop culture, name.
Not quite as much as Doge, but we're good. Now, hey, I was only kind of cursory following the CoinGeek and then what was going on in Miami. I don't know, and I shared it with Tim. I don't know if you guys saw that during the Bitcoin thing, some guy runs up, rips off a shirt, whatever, has the Doge kind of T-shirt on, and he had some people cheering for him, and he had some other people booing him. It was something like, I watched a few of these things. It was something of a hostile crowd down in Miami. I found that kind of interesting. I like the state.
If you go back and watch the hash wars and the BCH crowd versus the kind of level-headedness of those who spoke out for BSV, you had so many childish, rebellious, like weird vibes going on during the BSV hash war that I felt like that same vibe was going on, but in a massively like expounded way. Like Michael Saylor and fucking Max Kaiser like are all some pop stars now. And everybody who wanted money for the world suddenly got swept away into this, like they're all stock traders now. And they bet on the right horse. It's like, come on, you guys.
That's interesting. Yeah, see, I don't think I was definitely not at all involved or close enough during the hash wars, but I think like trying to bring these stories back to light, I think will help a lot of people understand why all these kind of factions exist. But then I'll bring it back to a video that Tim and I watched today. Tim sent to me, and it was with Craig Wright, and he was asked a question. I don't know who asked the question. We can find the video, but he was asked, he says, do you view that there are two Bitcoins, right? And I think the question I thought that he was asking was effectively like, okay, BSV versus BTC, right? That's what I heard when the question was asked. And Craig Wright was like, no, there's not two Bitcoins. And he gave an answer that I was like, okay, I'm a little confused by this. I kind of always was under the impression that Craig had this idea that there would be one blockchain that we called Bitcoin, and that which is effectively what we're talking about with BSV. What I took from him today was more along the lines of he would probably call Ethereum and Cardano Bitcoin. And I say this, I'm probably very, very wrong. I told Tim that. I was like, yeah, I'm a little bit lost in this video, what he's saying. I found it interesting. He's like, no, I don't see that there's two Bitcoins in the world. I'm like, okay, I don't quite get that. I don't quite understand how he's saying that. So I don't know if that makes any sense to you, if you get what that argument's coming from. I mean, you were there through a lot of it. And
well,
any idea?
I'd have to look to see the specific video you're talking about, but the way that I would see it, and the way I view it in general is, you had a protocol that was explained in the white paper, and it included a lot of different aspects of it, which were microtransaction capabilities. It spoke about that the node mining nodes would eventually become like data centers. So it obviously spoke to the point where it would massively scale, and the little men would get priced out of the abilities to become miners. And so some of these things were established early on in the white paper, and that was kind of the trajectory. The roadmap was to bring velocity of money, honest transactions, a public ledger that was all interoperable and capable of handling everything from encrypted to unencrypted clear text to fucking financials to derivatives, X, Y, and Z. So when I see that as the kind of roadmap, and then I see people who fight against it along the pathway, then I saw it's kind of like in some mystical movie when like someone hands off the freaking secret document to somebody to say, hey, keep this safe, right? We need to keep the oral tradition going because these motherfuckers have twisted it all around. And so it's almost like you're watching this truthful aspects of the protocol kind of follow its way through the history. And I think that Bitcoin SV emerged as that, as kind of them who took that truth from the beginning and kind of waged through all the onslaught of fighters along the way. And that includes those who, in BTC who stole the ticker name, if you will. So I mean, that's how I would see it. As far as him saying there's only one chain, it means that those other ones aren't actually Bitcoin. For one, they stole the ledger too. They're representing the white paper, but not following the protocol. So they're using the name, but not actually define them. They're not defined by the actual definition of Bitcoin.
Okay,
I don't know.
Interesting. So I mean, no, I think what you just explained is interesting because in some way, maybe when Craig is answering it, that's exactly like, no, I don't see because I still only see one. and he's under the impression that like there will still only be one, maybe. I don't know, but it's interesting. Again, great conversations that are going on here. What time do we have here, by the way?
It's 7:56. We've been, I think we've been streaming for just about 55 minutes.
So on another quick note, and we won't keep this much longer, but I love these conversations. And by the way, we are going to start going to a weekly call, trying to bring on different aspects of collaboration, what's going on. But
and Sean will be joining us next week too, Greg. Just so you know.
Very cool. Hey, so I just realized, are we streaming live or being recorded and all that stuff? Because I probably cussed a whole lot.
Yeah. That's all right. We'll rate it R for tonight.
Yeah, no.
All right. Well, from now on, I apologize. I'll have to remember that we're actually going live and not just chatting.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. No, it's this Thursday thing we always do live. But don't worry about it at all. I mean,
yeah, no worries, Greg. And I do apologize. I probably should have been a little bit more clear. My apologies.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, so we're gonna start doing these every week or whatever. But so what Tim and I were actually just talking about is kind of where we are with Udicci and when we were going to kind of do our launch. And an interesting question. And what we mean by our launch right now is, I think early on, Brian made a comment to us like, the first thing you have to do is plant your flag. And, we could have just, make a transaction on the blockchain. We could have done that a while ago. But we're still trying to figure out, like, do we want to have some fun and just wait till we have our system and do it through the system, or, that kind of, do we get. That's where the conversation was. And then it got into the conversation of, like, creating our own coins. And a question for you, because I can't remember. I want to say it was Brian early on, but I could be wrong that it was Brian. But I seen early on somebody mentioned, don't worry about making your own coin. Are you on that train? I mean, I thought that was sort of the piece of it was like you were kind of, here's our contribution. We're going to grow this purse over here on this blockchain with you. But are we not in line with the original vision with that way of thinking?
I think that, it depends really on everything that you want to derive out of the system. Again, it's a public open ledger, time-stamped. So you could use it, obviously, like we know BSV is value in and of itself. Bitcoin can be transacted peer-to-peer, micropayment. So we could use it as payments and reception of payments. But let's say that Walmart or Costco or one of these places wants to utilize tokens. So we're calling them tokens, but they might call them simply reward points.
Right.
And utilize that as their so-called coin. Again, it depends on what your purposes are. Coin has very specific kind of connotation anyway in itself to think in terms of almost financial. Token maybe kind of sounds a little bit more of a interest bearing instrument or a rights bearing instrument, something you could redeem.
Yeah, and I think exactly what. Yes, we would obviously, we'd want to be able to be redeemed for whatever currency that people want. Eventually you get it on an exchange and they can do what they want with it. But yeah, so I think what you just said is right in line with our way of thinking, because our whole platform, our whole model is always about trying to create what we call community commerce, and like that is part of that would be kind of stewarding your own economy, right? Ultimately, so I think that's a piece of it. So I appreciate your thoughts on that end. But yeah, I think so. Tim and I were just kind of back to that conversation a little bit. Tim, is when do we really want to quote unquote launch? And we were discussing. So we've made a what we call visual media NFT, just for fun of it. And actually, Tim, let's jump back into some technology here. You had mentioned earlier that, like, okay, you can better explain this NFT thing now after all these years, which is probably going to be a little bit more technical. So you want to kind of, start wrapping your head around that one. But yeah, so we have an NFT that we created, visual media NFT, that kind of has our little stick figure and our flag, and we're going to plant it. And we've got some music. We're just waiting on the final um, master, I guess, of the music, and that should be
Final
to us next
master and
week.
release.
Nice.
Master, okay. So it's only a 42-second clip, but kind of fun. So we're gonna have to fix up that NFT piece of it, and kind of our first thing will be to do like a multi-sig place on the chain, and credit to the guy who made the music, and put a little. I don't know, Tim, you said we wouldn't need a smart contract, and this is probably where I start to fail on the technology side, but I thought the smart contract is what would keep track of sort of, hey, if this thing ever actually sells, not that that's our grand scheme plan, but if this thing ever actually sells, then,
We
Mike,
wouldn't,
the guy who,
more or less, we wouldn't need a smart contract to actually put the transaction online. Depending on how we want to approach it, that's going to be determine whether or not we need a smart contract. I mean, if we're talking about attaching anything more to it, like, Greg, one of the things we had talked about with planting our flag is putting like a bag of coins with it. And so, that would obviously require a smart contract. So it depends on which way we go. I understand.
yeah, and I don't understand why if we put the coins to it. So why, maybe Tim, you can explain this. Like, why is it that if we wanted to compensate the various roles that we've identified that were involved with making this NFT, if we wanted to compensate those parties, why does that not need a smart contract, but associating the bag of coins does?
Sorry, my thing went back to mute. In my understanding, the way we would write the contract for the tokens would be definitely a little bit more involved. We would want it more involved to make sure that we're protecting it and stuff like that. For the, not saying we couldn't use a contract to do the initial planting of the flag, but we wouldn't need to. It's not a necessity to use a contract.
I'm sorry. So you're saying that we need the smart contract for the coins, not for the NFT?
We would for the NFT. Well, we could use it for the NFT. The thing is, you don't need a smart. Well, it's all in the way you could code it without using a smart contract. You could code it directly into a blockchain transaction. That's where I'm at learning right now with some of the low level scripting language and stuff. But if we're making an NFT, then yes, we would use a smart contract. I'm not sure that NFT is the way we would go with planting our flag, and I'm not sure that NFTs. Hey, Greg, maybe you can answer this better.
Sure.
When you launch a coin, is it through an NFT or a fungible token?
Well, so yeah, I mean, so again, if you're talking about a coin, like a multiplicity of exchangeable tokens for equal value of redemption quality coming off of one minting, I would call that a fungible token, right? So it's
Right.
They're all mirror images of each other. And again, there's something to be said about the legal and the technical aspects of all this. Let's say we mint what they're calling a non-fungible token, but we mint 100 of them, and then we do that 1,000 times, and then we allow on our platform the redemption of the exact same thing for each and every single one of those tokens. That sounds awfully fungible to me. I mean, so the fungibility of tokens is going to be partly in the redemption ability of them and who's redeeming them.
Right.
So is the non-fungible aspects can certainly be recognized in code as far as you're doing a minting that is individually, there's either one of these or one of a very limited amount, and that even becomes again 300 versus 21 million.
Right.
It depends on whose eye of the beholder, right? As far as what the fungibility and what the uniquenesses of it is.
And it's all in the way you write you're writing the script on the tokens at that point too. And what I'm learning and as I'm starting to understand is the flexibility is what allows you to kind of You know, you're not that you're setting rules
Well, good
or
point.
breaking rules, but you're sort of coding around rules at certain points.
Well, and I would even maybe speak to, that on this, maybe you have a much, deeper knowledge of certain aspects of the low level scripting. But so, at that point, if you're minting a single NFT with very specific metadata, it might behoove you to mint that one specific one as one, right? If you're trying to really do something granular with it, as far as ownership, payouts, and different things.
Right. Yeah, no, that to me, I think like going with the flow of where NFTs are right now in the marketplace, I think is the easiest way to keep NFTs clear. And you're absolutely like, go as granular as you want. Now, granted, an NFT then could also be, running the HOA for, a private island kind of thing. That's maybe not exactly true, but probably close enough. So yeah, if we just think about it literally as we're putting this silly piece of art online right now, and we're going to actually, through that, if it sells, give ongoing royalties back to the person who made the music, the person who planted the flag, that kind of stuff. It's a simple NFT, but it does, like you're saying, it's very, very particular in its purpose. It doesn't need more than one. So if we want to think in things that need of more than one, that would become like our quote unquote coins because they're all one and the same.
Yeah. Well, let's think of maybe a specific example even. Like, so there's two examples I'll give of fungibility and non-fungibility in the real world, maybe that and transfer back into the token world. So you take a deed of a house and you make a non-fungible token, and you have inside of or attached to that non-fungible token 1,000 fungible, what we'll call fungible tokens of interest attached to the income of that house deed, right? So that deed of the house is owned by an entity now who is renting it out, and the rental income is now being split up amongst 1,000 interest holders because we created maybe a trust, a certificate of interest, 1,000 times tokenized out. We even allowed them to be transferable within the so-called beneficiaries. So right there, you have one aspect of a single entity or single non-fungible token, which then you're splitting up interest across the that entity that you're calling fungible tokens. That's I'm getting a lot of background noise.
Yeah, Chuck, you got background noise going on there.
All right, hold on a second. Let me try to walk out of here, if that helps. All right.
Now remember in the financial world, something that got people in trouble even, but maybe can be analyzed from a more, again, granular perspective and controlled, is derivatives. So now we could take those 1,000, what was supposedly fungible tokens of interest on a piece of capital property, res of a trust, which is a non-fungible token, and now you can take those 1,000 and you can create derivatives on top of those and issue 1,000 tokens against each of those. And so it can go on and on and on as far as what you're right.
Yeah, I am tracking with you a little bit more now. So effectively, even now, let's just bring it back to the simple NFT with a piece of art in it, and we've got Sally, Bob, and Joe who are each going to get paid out. That could be done through one NFT, and then once there is revenue, I'm sorry, I don't even know the proper term right now. There's a transaction which involves the sale of this token. It could instantly just pay out those three people to their identities on the blockchain, or we could go to the idea you're talking about here is we've got 1,000 people sharing on, owning the private island. They each have their own token, and the one token pays to the other token, so it has its value also on the chain in something else that could be then packaged and resold again.
You could have
simply. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And some of this stuff will be, baked into, as Tim was saying, lower level scripting language, and then some of these things can be baked on top of it on overlay networks and
embedded functions even in JSON.
Well, that's exactly right. So I mean, so if we say token A has a baked in function that says we pay the owners, and the owners are variable X, Y, and Z always, and then so we're now being able to transfer these owners amongst people and update the reference to the reference owners through the on-chain baked in code.
It's kind of interesting because it really does make the architecture of any one given product or let's just call it token, any one given token. I mean, the potential architecture archetypes might even be more correct, like the potential archetype of a token is almost limitless, because you can always then go back and kind of come behind it with another token.
Exactly.
Yes.
So anyways, yeah, so I think that, like, we were talking about maybe, I don't know, Tim, when are you thinking you would like to do this? I was thinking we could begin our countdown, even, I think we could do it sooner than 5. Do a 5-4 countdown or something.
Yeah, we can even do a 3, 2, 1 countdown if you want.
And again, I'm going to say, like, do you want to do it in the system, though, right? So that it would require, I mean, maybe Mike doesn't have to do it if he doesn't want to. We could sort of hard code that, or we could assign it, or, I don't know if you want to do it in the system, then place it, and we kind of have some fun with it, and that, that's our launch.
That would be kind of my preferred method, because that way we're showing it working through Udicci, and because at that point we're also going to be able to take any of our records and do the same thing mostly.
Right. So basically, that's just a matter of us minting a media bit with roles assigned to it, compensation assigned to it.
Yeah, we got a little structure to put in place, but not much.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we'll just kind of generally, let's put it out there 5 weeks, so we don't have to, rush or anything else. And if we are ready to do it in 3 weeks, we'll just go from 5, 4, 3, and we'll do 3, 2, 1. Like, we'll just kind of like the last week is kind of like that. Okay, we're ready. We're just going to do this.
Nice.
Does that sound good?
Yeah. Now, are you guys going to publish this publicly or within the Udicci community?
We'll actually publish it while we're live, I'm sure. That'll probably be one of the aspects of it. We will publish it through the Udicci platform. It will be available to the public through what we are going to be calling chain stories. And we will have a couple of chain stories available to the public that they would then be able to load those. That's kind of the intent, right, Chuck?
Yeah. So basically, I figured, okay. So yeah, I guess I need to get some of the terminology a little bit better. When I think in terms of publishing right now, I need to probably do a better job in my head of keeping a difference, let's say, minting and publishing. Because when you said publish, I was thinking putting it on the blockchain. So like, let's say publishing, it'll be minted, I guess, to BSV. And if that's proper terminology, Tim, you can correct me there if it's not. But so yeah, it'll be minted to BSV, which then I would call it being published, and it would be viewable to the public out on Udicci.TV or anywhere else, right? It'll just be something we can share at that point and have some fun with it. But it is basically just a simple commercial for us then to kind of take our next steps, which would be to start releasing some of these chain stories that Tim talks about, and we'll get those on the chain also, just to have some fun with them. They probably don't need to be, but why not?
Hey, Chuck, just real quick, and Greg, if you have just a couple more minutes, why don't we end our live stream and go to kind of our after hours part and continue talking a little bit more about that? I think Greg might be interested to hear a little bit more.
Sure.
All right.
Is there any reason you don't want to? Okay. All right. Just so we can kind of start winding this down. All right. So I think I need to go change the Facebook thing while we're doing this.
All
Do
right.
we any last minute questions from the public? Any last callers?
Yeah, we're looking
Good
for
point.
any questions. Anybody? Bueller.
Let's see here.
Let's see. I don't see. Yeah, we don't have. We have a couple people that have watched on YouTube tonight, but no messages. So that's.
Oh, hey, it looks like Facebook only went live for like 13 seconds.
No, that was your earlier thing that you messed up. We actually are live on on Udicci's profile. I shared it. It got a little messed
Okay, so-
up because I don't know what you did, but so all right.
All right,
So
well, then I guess
you
Oh,
want
no, I need
to
to go turn
sign out?
off. Hold on. No, we're just going to turn this off, right? And,
Oh,
right? I mean,
okay.
we don't
Well,
need to
hold
do
on.
anything.
Let me fade out and good night, everybody.